It's actually World Edition, and of course, a number of things are going on in the world, and we'll be talking about those. I've got Rick Rosner with me, and we'll see who else joins us as well. But Hurricane Milton dropped 1 in 1,000 years levels of rain around Tampa Bay, and I understand that they had some damage to their baseball stadium and all along those lines. So Hurricane Milton recovery resumes as the Republicans steer up the political storm. So definitely, it looks like Hurricane Milton has left at least 16 dead in Florida, as millions are left without power. So that is something else going on in the world. And Obama tells black men it's not acceptable to sit out the election. So Obama takes down Trump's lies and fake strengths, urging men to vote for Harris. And definitely, Obama tells men that Trump doesn't represent real strengths. So he was urging folks to get out and vote, and that was in Pittsburgh. And the Nobel Peace Prize is given to the Japanese organization on Hideyama for his work against nuclear weapons. So that's something else that we're seeing in the news as well. So a lot of things are going on in that space and along those lines. So we'll see what happening in that regard. So a lot of things are taking place in that way. We'll definitely be interested to see how this all goes as well. And Trump calls for CBS to lose broadcasting rights over its Harris interview. So that is something that is also going on in the world. So a number of things are taking place, and we're going to find out what our regular panelists. And like I said, when I came in, I saw that Rick had joined me, and we'll see who else joins us as well, if anybody. And we'll definitely have some conversations around some of these news items and all along those lines. And by the way, that Peace Prize was awarded to a Japanese atomic bomb survivors group. Apparently, that was the anti-nuclear weapon group behind Hitianko that was out there as well. And Israel strikes Lebanon and Gaza as the war with Hamas and Hezbollah continue. So Israel targeted UN peacekeepers again after a deadly attack in central Beirut. So Israeli strike killed 22 in central Beirut attack. And Ukraine is investigating the death of a journalist in Russian detention. So Kyiv says that Ukrainian reporter Victoria Rashchini died in Russian detention. So definitely that conflict is going on as well. And a military probe says that the drowning of two Navy SEALs was preventable. So definitely that's something that I know the Navy will probably be dealing with as well. And the UN inquiry accuses Israel of seeking to destroy Gaza's healthcare system. So that is something else that we're seeing as well. And definitely a lot of things going on in that space and around that way. So definitely, I'm seeing there's other news coverage that I want to get to before we get to the panelists and see what they've got to say about a number of these stories as well, and see what's going on in their side of the world. Because I know a lot of things are taking place throughout the world and in various parts of the world and all along those lines. So let's see what's happening in the United States, and then I'll bring in folks and see what they've got to say about things going on in their parts. 23 were rescued after a tourist mine elevator malfunction left one dead, and that was in Colorado. So tourists were rescued from a Colorado gold mine hours after a fatal accident. So that was something that was going on in Colorado. I know Rick's got some ties to Colorado and all along those lines. So maybe he's got some thoughts about that and all in that kind of space. Ohio voters are dismissing false claims about Haitians, but Trump has a slight lead in that area, and it looks like many Haitians have prospered in Springfield, Ohio, and then their hate came after certain remarks were made and all along those lines. But amid false claims about Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, officials say these are some they are some serious health challenges that they're facing there as well. So definitely a lot of people will be talking about that also. And amid hurricanes, the chemtrail conspiracy theory has its moment in the sun. So definitely that's a thing going on with false conspiracy theories about Hurricane Milton, and that is being spread despite outcry from officials. And some folks are fascinated by the Northern Lights, and apparently the Northern Lights dazzled during a solar storm yesterday. So the solar storm unleashed stunning views of auroras across the United States and all along those lines. So for those folks that are stargazers, apparently you had a lot to look at and all along those lines. And Detroit Mayor Mike Dugan hits back after Trump dissed his city. So Trump picked a fight with the Detroit, and Waltz blasts Trump for his Detroit criticisms. All these guys know is how to manufacture BS, or what BS stands for, is what Walt said in that regards. And Biden told Trump yesterday to get a life over hurricane, misinformation. So definitely there's some conversations going about in that space. And apparently, Harris made a pitch to Latino voters at a Univision town hall. So definitely that's an interesting thing. So Harris used the town hall to show empathy with Latino voters. So we'll see if that had any sort of good reaction to for folks that are thinking about not having made up their mind about who they're going to vote for, and all along those lines. But we'll see if that actually played a role or not. And 2 dead and 35 were injured after a chemical leak of hydrogen sulfide at the Pemex Deer Park oil refinery, and that was in the Houston area. So definitely, it looks like that was another thing where there was a chemical disaster, and all along those lines. So definitely, there's some things that are taking place in that way. And the Coast Guard rescues a boat captain found clinging to a cooler in the Gulf of Mexico. And definitely that's something else going on. And crowd and protests are expected as Trump visits Aurora. So Trump's sold out Aurora, Colorado rally is a chance to prove it's not a city overrun by Venezuelan gangs. So definitely it looks like Trump is to campaign in Aurora, Colorado, which is a site of his false claims about gangs and all along those lines. So on that note, I think I will bring Rick in because I think if I remember correctly, Rick spent some time in Aurora and actually had some family in that area and all along those lines. So I'm gonna bring Rick in because I think Rick actually grew up in that area and might even know some ideas about what Aurora's.
Well, all I can tell you about this, I was on the swim team for half a second in my senior year in high school, and we went to a swim meet in Aurora, and my friend peed in the pool. So, I mean, that doesn't really tell you much about Aurora. Um, I've got some youth voting. I mean, not youth. I've got some early voting statistics that are from the Florida Elections Project, which monitors early voting across the whole U.S. And about one voter in 40 has already voted. And some states give you statistics on the demographics of those early voters, which tend to run Democratic. Democrats vote early, Republicans vote day of. But with using statistics from about, I don't know, 24 states, the number of Democrats who voted so far is almost exactly double the number of Republicans if you ignore the 16% where we don't know which party they're registered to. So if you're for Harris, that's a decent trend. But a not decent trend is using stats from 8 states. Only 3% of the voters who voted so far are 18 to 29, 60% are over 65. So that's not good if you're for Harris. Nearly 55% of voters using stats from 5 states are female, versus 45% for guys, which is good for Harris because we know Trump pulls more voters from males. In the 2020 election, about 53.1% of voters were female. So for every 7 guys who voted in 2000, 8 women voted. And then one more statistic that isn't great if you want Harris is 73% of voters so far are white versus 61% of the population. And we know, that Trump gets by off a whitey. So there you go, some statistics.
Sounds good and everything. Kim, how's things going in your neck of the woods and everything? Definitely, like I said, I was getting some of the news items. I was doing a virtual conference with some social workers earlier today that is in their day 2 and everything. But how are things going in your neck of the woods? It looks like you've got a giraffe in the back of your area.
I'm in a safari journey. I left Atlanta yesterday. Atlanta was sunny and beautiful and warm. And the traffic wasn't as bad as going into Atlanta, where we got rerouted a few times due to either the roads being closed or not in Atlanta, but just getting there. But things were a lot better coming back, so I can tell things are getting under control with the storm. But everyone is concerned in Atlanta. Everyone is concerned about the well-being of Asheville because Asheville is a close vacation zone for them. Many people probably own homes or consistently rented homes from that area because it is the heart of the Blue Ridge, right? It's heart of the hills. Um, but everything's going pretty good. I'm looking forward to getting back to Raleigh, North Carolina, and maybe starting some new projects and helping some of the hurricane victims getting on board more with that. But things look good as far as the political climate. In Atlanta, I felt like it was kind of divided equally, though everyone goes, "Oh, everything is Democrat here," and they're Republicans, of course. And what I noticed when I went out for a run or a walk every day is you had some signs for Democrat and some signs for Republicans. It was almost 50-50 to me. I should have taken pictures, but decided not to. The Republicans cry it's a blue state. The Democrats say, it's probably 50. I think Democrats are a little more realistic and less extreme. Something I noticed is 60 Minutes is talking about Trump not doing an interview. And I was watching their review of it, and their claim, of course, is that he's kind of sidestepping interviews right now, maybe because maybe he does have some dementia. I saw someone post something the other day. What would you do if you had a person over 70, 75, and they're derangedly talking about humans eating cats and screaming about women executing their babies? You would have them checked into a mental home and evaluated and already deem them being not fit for society right now. But people don't do that. They think he's funny, charming, engaging. They think it's part of his character, and it is. It's part of his character, I guess, to be deranged. But I agree with 60 Minutes. They kept talking about how concerning it is that they get extremely upset. They even pointed out J.D. Vance's how he threw a little baby fit about, why are you fact checking me? They don't like to be fact checked. And like 60 Minutes, everyone there is saying, we love to be fact checked. Please fact check us, not with your opinions. Your opinions are one thing, but if you're going to fact check us, show the truth of evidence. And they go, we just don't understand why people don't even see that this is a problem, that they don't want to be fact checked and maybe found that they're lying. People just accept that they're going to lie all the time. And maybe, again, that is a character trait people love, but you got to be careful about that, right? So 60 Minutes had a pretty long dialogue on this. They're like, we're a little bit confused why he won't even do an interview. He's scared that he's going to be fact checked. And everyone there had a lot of common sense about, what's up with a person who doesn't like to be fact checked. It's kind of like recently I was doing some research, and all of the Republicans had gone to Trump and asked him to do a pardon for them before he left office. There was a long list of Republicans that were requesting a pardon. And in pardons, it's only if you've done a criminal act. So now I've got that list of Republicans, and I'm wondering what kind of criminal act did they do or think they did, and they were just spreading fear about stupid things. But why waste a high official's time with senseless acts like that? I'm clueless, but it is very concerning. Why are people afraid of being I'm not afraid of being fact checked. I know a lot of people who don't like it. But if you're going to fact check me, make sure you have the truth of evidence, not an opinion based on, especially Trump. Okay. And don't use my name and say things I didn't say, please. Thank you.
That makes sense.
If you're directing that at me, Kimberly, just come straight out and direct it at me, okay? Let's sit here and skirt around
It's
the
not
issue like
directed
that.
at you. It's directed.
Oh, it was directed
at
at
other
Toby,
people
was it?
who-
Directed at Rick, was it?
It
Or
was
you think that-
directed at other people who used my name and made up lies.
Sure.
Did you use my name and make up lies?
Well, according to you, I did.
I've already addressed that to you, haven't I?
Rick,
But you guys we're not going to get into personal issues here. What I'd like to do is just say, don't use somebody's name and misrepresent what they say. Let's be honest. Let's be truthful. Don't throw.
But you're not being honest and truthful at all in your analysis just a moment. So you cut me off straight away. You did it to me yesterday. You do it to me again today. Go on. I'll leave you. I'll mute myself, and you guys can have another hour to just bash Trump and don't hear anything else.
We're not bashing Trump. What we're asking is it concerning? I'd like to ask a question. Okay, let's start with Mark.
Well, I was actually answering the questions. I was actually answering the things that you said, and you cut me off.
We're here talking about the World Edition. Okay, Mark, I'm going to ask a question for everyone. Is it concerning to you that a high official gets so offended and refuses to talk to anyone because he's being fact-checked? Does that concern you?
Well, let's go to Rick and then to Toby and then Mark before I get a chance to respond. You can do your usual thing and change the subject.
Jack,
okay, well, let them speak first.
Why are you attacking me to begin with, and why are you making up the rules? You don't make up the rules here. I started a question.
Kimberly,
your question.
You just asked me a question. You want me to answer it or not?
I didn't ask you a question. I asked Mark first.
Just ask me a question, then you muted me.
I'm asking Mark a question. Does it offend you? Mark, is it concerning to you that a high official who's running for president and his running mate get offended when they are being fact-checked?
Well, I think everybody needs to be fact-checked on politics, and I think that most politicians are aware of that. I mean, one of the things that I saw yesterday was quite ironic, and I don't think Shaquille will like it and everything, but maybe he will. But I'm a big fan of parody, and there was a parody commercial, maybe Jacoby's seen it, that basically is a parody of Mark Robinson and with the stances that he's taken and everything. But it's a parody commercial, and the people literally say that it's a parody because on the commercial it says that it's being done by a parody organization here in this area. But at the end, they say that it is quotes that he said, whether that's around women, whether that's around other folks, and that they are making a parody about it, even though it's probably a political ad as well. So it's kind of like it's crossing the line between whether it's a parody or a political ad, and that I'm not quite clear on. So if anybody's got any ideas,
right. But my question directly is: does it concern you? Are you concerned about a high official who is not going to?
I mean, high officials avoid stuff all the time. My dad is dealing with it.
But I mean, does it bother you? That's all I'm asking.
It bothers me.
Mark, hold on. Mark, real quick, just I guess to put it in much easier terms, because I think trying to listen to all the speeches, because I even watched Kamala Harris's Telemundo speech or Univision discussion yesterday. Trump has his on Wednesday of next week, which I'll probably watch as well. But I think last night when President Obama actually got on stage, he's asking the same thing Kim is actually asking, but put it in different words. And that word, what he was expressing, and I think, Rick, you can take it away, or Shaq, you can take it away, whomever can take it away after this. But what he had said in that in those comments were how when did it become acceptable in a situation like a hurricane for a leader or someone at the top part of a party to lie for political points? Because, and I know those that want to say that Trump didn't lie or whatever. No, he factually lied, and he knowingly lied and has misled to his individuals or those that like him to a point where they're chanting anti-Semitic things at those in FEMA, doing a whole bunch of stuff. So his question, I guess, Kim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like your question is similar to what he was saying. When did it become okay for someone in leadership to lie into a point where it's harming people, legitimately harming people? And when did that become okay for us?
Well, it's not just about the line. When did it become okay for someone to say it's not allowed to fact check me? You can't fact check me. Well, when did that? I mean, and does that not? Are you concerned that we're going to end up with a government that says we can't fact check them? That's where I'm leading all of this to. Is it concerning? But we can go to Rick. Rick has had his hand up, and then we'll go back to Mark.
Kim, I mean,
all right,
but the point that I was trying to make is that it's concerning to everybody. I mean, and politicians unfortunately do that. There's a major Democratic candidate here in Durham that we're running into that issue because he's doing a lot of double talk because he doesn't want to get the answer with.
Yeah, but does he get upset?
Does he get upset? So there's a lot of double talk among politicians. Even
Mark, it's not
something simple.
It's not the double talking. Does he get upset over being fact checked?
That's what I just said. I said it's not a Democrat.
Yeah, it's not a Democrat-Republican thing. But right now, at this very moment, we do have a leader legitimately lying to score political points and putting people in harm. When did that become okay?
And putting people in harm, and this has been brought up, but they get upset over being fact checked. But I'm going to talk. We'll ask Rick. Rick, what is your thought?
I just want to say, as somebody whose job it was to be a fact checker, fact checking is a pain in the ass. Facts blow up on you all the time. I was constantly in trouble. I would vouch for facts on a TV show, and then it would turn out that, well, like one time we had a spelling bee with the National Spelling Bee Award winner, and I tell my assistant on that, make sure there's not more than one spelling for these words. And the kid gets out there on stage and spells the word, and we go wrong. And the kid says, I don't think so. And we checked it, and there was an alternate spelling we hadn't caught. And, I was always getting in trouble that way. But when it comes to frickin' Trump, the Washington Post ran a lie counter of all the misstatements, inaccuracies, and flat out lies he told to the public as president. And he averaged about 21 a day, but he started out at about 10 a day. But by the end of his presidency, he was cranking out about 30 a day. And, he doesn't care what he says.
Well, no, but does it concern you that they get so upset? I mean, when you look at someone who gets upset over being fact checked,
well, yeah, it's just part of the performance, the bluster and the indignation.
I know it's part of the performance, but do you feel like they're trustworthy? That's where I'm getting around to, because that's what 60 Minutes was saying. 60 Minutes was like, you know what? I'm up here all day, every day saying something. I love the fact that people fact check me, because if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm not intentionally wrong. I don't intentionally mean to lie. But
for people who are voting for Trump, what he says doesn't particularly matter at this point with less than.
But they say they want the truth, right?
Well, I mean, they talk about like when I talk with Lance, who's
one of the things. I was just going to say, one of the things that Trump taps into well is the emotion, and that emotion of people kind of it doesn't sit into the truth or whatever else. It's how I feel. It's that perception. He's speaking for me, and it's my perception. I could be wrong on that. So our resident Trump defender, Shaq, can actually talk more about that.
Well, I don't want to get into that as much as I want to understand.
Now that you've said that, Keely's going to.
I want to understand.
Mute me again.
But I had a question and nobody is answering it. Now I'm going to get to Shaq and ask him the words that they don't like to be fact checked. Does that upset you? That's all. Does it make you trust them less or trust them more? Are you concerned about having somebody who is, upset over being fact checked? And are you concerned about, that's all I'm asking, because 60 Minutes made a good point about the fact that people don't like to be fact checked and how concerning it is to them. Now, it's not just 60 Minutes, and to get to your point, I learned a word about emotional damage, which is a word that I've heard a lot while I was in Atlanta.
Shaquille, you got any thoughts on this? Because I mean, one of the things you talk about is this notion of
as soon as I go to say something, Kimberly mutes me. So, Kimberly, you may as well just tell me what you want me to say, so that I don't deviate from it. You may as well just do that. I'll tell you what. I'll save you the effort. I'll mute myself. Ridiculous. This would have to be one of the most hilarious.
Hey,
all right. So, I mean, but Jacoby, before he left, was right that Trump speaks to, even though he's the biggest bullshitter in the history of the presidency, he speaks to relatable, emotional, relatable feelings crap. I don't know what I'm saying. That when he talks about he doesn't want to be fact checked, he speaks to a relatable thing that his people feel like he's held to an unreasonable standard, but both sides feel that way. But I'd like to stop talking because I don't know what I'm talking about at this point. Where'd everybody go? But yeah, I mean, I can talk about my experience, working on a late night show where my boss, he told jokes which are not true, but he was very strict about the factual background of the jokes being true. When he did the setup, the facts that set up the punchline, he absolutely was concerned with truth. And I would say that is, consistent with the non-lazy talk show hosts. And, I'd say all the late night people right now are non-lazy, that they really want to say stuff that's true when they're speaking truthfully and not joking. Everybody went away, leaving me here exposed in my... all right, let's go to Drudge and talk about what's going on. Let's see. Oh, if there are women in your life and you want Harris to be president, talk to the women in your life and urge them to get out and vote, because women are much more likely to be Harris voters. And when women outvote guys, and they've been by a significant margin, the Democratic candidate wins. For the past, about 6 election cycles, women have outvoted men by quite a bit, by 53 to 47 in 2020, by about 53.5 to 46.5 in 2016. Even that wasn't enough in 2016 to get a woman to be president. So in this election, it would be good to get, the margin up to 55-45. But let's go to Drudge so I don't have to be a slave to, inappropriate, to my own lack of knowing what's going on. All right, so Obama's back on the campaign trail with, 26 days to go until the election. It's been noted that this, that even though people my age think Obama is a cool guy, I think Obama was too cool a guy as president, where it was no drama Obama. He tried to avoid being contentious, which meant that he, sometimes got played by the Republicans, most notably when they blocked his Supreme Court nominee for a year almost. But just because people my age think he's cool, commentators have noted that the youngest possible Obama voter is now 30, because the last time Obama was elected was in 2012. So if you're trying to get 18 to 29s, you've got a guy that they remember from the time they were in middle school out there on the campaign trail. And as I noted earlier, only about 3.2% of early voters so far are 18 to 25-year-olds. So if you're trying to get out the vote and you want Harris to win, talk to the youngs in your life and talk to the women in your life. And yeah, there are plenty of olds for voting for Harris, such as me, but statistically, it's women, it's young people, it's non-whites. So the Drudge headline is more confusion. Where'd everybody go? Somebody come save me from my own idiocy. Anyway, more confusion from Trump. He was talking about Biden circles during a rally. And people, there's a thing called sane washing where you take the nonsense Trump says and then you try to figure out what he meant. Okay, so when he was talking about, so here's Trump at the rally. That was the first I realized. I said, who the hell did that? I saw engines about 3-4 years ago. These things were coming, cylinders, no wings, no nothing. And they're coming down very slowly, landing on a raft in the middle of the ocean, someplace with a circle. Boom. So if I were trying to sane wash Trump, I believe he was talking about UFOs. And then when he was talking about
Rick, to answer your question, I don't think that what just happened to you was fair at all. But to answer your question, I didn't leave. I was brought backstage. Okay. We were all taken backstage. I was brought backstage, and then you were left by yourself because, as you know, it's very, very clear. I can't say anything. You guys, as I predicted, you guys wanted to say something about Trump, and 3 times I went to say something. I was muted multiple times, and I was forced backstage. So that's why you were left there. I think our audience know that that's why you were left there by yourself, because of the constant silencing and censoring of anybody who has a different opinion. And Jacoby jumped up and he said, hey, a resident Trump defender, which was fine. He was making a bit of a joke, and an entry for me to come in. And as soon as I went to respond, muted. Speaks volumes.
All right. So, yeah, I believe you've got a point, though. It probably happens to you more than it should. But I mean, we all feel the same frustration. All these shows on Pod TV, when I talk to my wife about them, I go, it's time to go yell, because it's us kind of yelling over each other. Do you get off more than average? Possibly, probably.
Rick, yesterday I spent the whole show silenced, and as soon as I went to say something, we've got to end the show when Sasha tried to yield his time.
That was terrible.
Here's
Ridiculous.
Here's the situation. Yeah, but I tried to say stuff earlier in the show, was never given the chance. And here's the situation that we've got. And this is why I keep coming back to the same point. If you're a Democrat, fine. And this isn't directed at you, Rick, because I think you're a very reasonable person. If you're a Democrat, that's fine. Except that other people are going to have other opinions. Now, Kimberly has asked some questions there, and I don't agree with the analysis and the way that she's asked the questions. When I try to answer it, she comes in and mutes me. Okay, then. And so what did I say? If I'm not allowed to speak, you three that were left on the show, you guys come in, pile on Trump, and then change the topic before I get a chance. And what happened? That's exactly what happened.
It's not fair, but I do have one.
Well, hold on a second, Rick, hold on a second.
Let me make a quick. Can I make a quick point? Which is the news shows, Fox, MSNBC, CNN. They have a terrible thing that just a standard news practice is. You can't speak for very long. Everybody gets up. Everybody's a practiced speaker. They make their point in 30 seconds, and then it goes to somebody else. On this show, we speak for too long. It's bad to let people speak for only 30 seconds on the news shows, but we do the opposite bad, which is we kind of filibuster. I'd like everybody to kind of limit themselves to like a minute or 45 seconds at a time.
Well, I try doing that, but as I said, if as soon as I try and say something, I get 3 or 4 words out and I'm muted, and the complaint is, the long-standing complaint from other guests and myself on this network is that the people that are centre-right don't get an adequate chance to express their views. And you respond to that by muting me and taking me backstage. And then before I got here, it was just, I took myself backstage, because I'm not an admin. So who took me backstage?
I was taken backstage too, so somebody else. What I will say is I do not touch. I will mute when you're talking over me and I'm asking a question, or if Nick is asking a question, or if Mark is asking a question, because Shaq, you do have a tendency of butting in. But what I was asking a question.
You asked the question, and I wasn't even allowed to answer the question.
But I would like the question answered. Does it concern you that certain politicians get extremely upset over being fact checked? Now, Rick answered, Mark, I think answered. I would like an answer, Mark. I would like an answer.
Kim, hold on a second.
Do you want an answer or not? Because you keep asking me, you don't want to hear from me, obviously.
I want to hear from Sasha. Hold on a second.
Well, okay, let's get to Sasha now.
No,
I asked Jack, and then Sasha came in, but I have asked.
Okay, let's go to Sasha. Sasha will give his impartial analysis of Trump. I love Sasha, right? But Sasha doesn't like Trump. So we'll go to Sasha, then Mark, change the subject again, and do everything you can to make sure that you don't get a response from me. Perfect.
I wanted a response from you, but I had intended to go round robin. But go ahead, Sasha.
We'll go round robin, go to Sasha, and then go round robin again and skip me a second time. No problems. As I said, I'll mute myself. You go for it.
No, hold on a second.
So he muted. He took himself off.
No, he took himself off.
Yeah, I announced that. I said I'll mute myself. Okay, I'll turn my camera off. And no disrespect to you, Sasha. I'll turn my camera off, and I'll come back in a few minutes and see if I can speak then.
That's because he can't stand the answer. But Sasha,
let's go to Sasha.
I can't stand what? You're muting me and taking me backstage. What's the point? I'll just sit back, and when you call...
Hold on a second, everybody.
You should just mute me again. When you're ready, tell me. When you're ready, tell me, and I'll come back.
I muted both of you. Because...
All right.
Mark, I want to tell you
First off, everything. I'm going to tell you why I'm taking issue. The question is actually, in my mind, in a lot of ways, and I'm not saying this because I love you dearly, Kim, but I think even Rick would agree, it's a loaded question. It's a question that really has a loaded answer. It is definitely known as a loaded question because you're answering a question that if you answer it the wrong way, it's going to be seen as you being either pro-Trump or being pro-falsehood and everything. So in a lot of ways,
I'm asking a human. Okay, let me ask you this: if your girlfriend got mad at you every time you questioned whether she was lying to you or not, would you be concerned that she's upset at you for checking her all the time?
I mean, but that's to me like that's
I am just asking. Does it bother?
Like that, can you beat your wife question? It's a loaded question.
It's not a loaded question. Does it? I think it's an honest question. Does it concern people that you have presidents or a high official? Sasha, I just would like Sasha's opinion on it. I don't think it's loaded.
Right,
Sasha,
so
would it concern you about a high official?
Let Sasha go. Let Sasha go. Go, Sasha.
The problem with this show is that you don't have control about who says and for how long says, and then you're interrupting each other constantly. You're talking about the same time. Have you ever seen my investment show or my Ukrainian shows? Has that ever happened there? And Shaquille was on both shows.
It doesn't happen on my other shows either, Sasha.
He was on Wednesday. He was on investment show. He did a very good contribution to the show. Nobody talked over him. He never talked over others. And same on Ukrainian show whenever he visited and so on. So it's very much depends on who is conducting the show. And if you are saying, okay, let's now hear from Sasha, and then for 10 minutes you keep talking and interrupting each other.
Yeah.
Well, Mark says, okay, let's hear from Sasha. And you would continue talking and talking and talking and talking. And you know what? I would be glad if something what you said would be very important, but it's not. You're talking about blah, 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 blah. Nothing makes any sense what you're talking to each other and so on. Just wait until your turn. Concentrate your thoughts. Say it in a minute or even less if possible. And that's it. Nobody wants to hear you for 5, 10, 15 minutes. All of you, okay?
Thank you. So my question was, fact checking, yes or no? Does it concern you if someone gets upset over it? That's all.
So yeah, I do want to hear from Shaq on this because
I do, but I would like to hear now that we passed the ball. I would like to hear from Sasha on this question.
The fact checking is all depends who is doing the fact checking. What information or what source are you using for fact checking? Because the fact checking from different sources could provide a different information, and then which one is a truthful information? It's very difficult to establish. So all you can do if you are saying something which has to be checked, just say your source of information and let other people, whoever has inclination, to go into the source and check in for himself.
But
There's
should
no
people
reason.
get upset over it? That's
all
all.
right, can we have Shaq say a thing now? Let's have
But nobody's really answered the question.
But
Would you be concerned over somebody who gets upset over all the time being fact checked? Again, everyone's talking over my question. I had one simple question, and none of the guys can answer it. They all tap dance around it. But Sasha, doesn't it concern you if somebody is always, because I watched the 60 Minutes show, this is where this came from. And they said, it's really concerning to us because we don't mind if we're fact checked. We don't care who does it as long as you bring, just like you said, bring
all right.
to support it. What are you doing?
Now let's let Shaq answer the freaking question.
Okay, and we'll let Shaq answer it, but I don't think Sasha really had the full question. But
we're not getting any place. Just let Shaq say something. Shaq,
all right.
Go.
There, go, Shaq. Go, Shaq, go.
Right,
here, I'll put him center stage.
You don't need to give me center stage. I'm quite comfortable to be on with other people. Don't put me up here by myself. Rick doesn't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. So bring everyone else back, please. Jacoby at the end of before he left, he said, "Let's hear from our resident Trump defender," which is perfectly reasonable. Jacoby, that was fine. I think you're being tongue in cheek. No problems. It's very clear, I think, to everybody that your question, the way you've worded it, is about Trump and JD Vance. So when you then follow it up with, so is it a problem? Look, you've made comments in your opening about Trump being geriatric and he needs to see a neurologist and all those sorts of things. We've just been hearing for years that there was nothing wrong with Biden when it was brought up by Republicans. And what you try to do is you try to twist it back. And all the criticism that Republicans have had against Biden, you're now throwing at Donald Trump. I don't think that's particularly ingenuous. I'll also just say that the first time you started bringing up this issue about being fact-checked was in the J.D. Vance debate against Waltz. I don't believe that J.D. Vance had a little temper tantrum about being fact-checked. What he did was he made the point that there wasn't supposed to be any fact-checking on that debate, and then he responded to it. He said, because you have now done that, let me explain. And he got this very catty answer, which was, well, thank you for explaining the process in relation to the Haitian immigrants and their legal status. So this idea of, people get upset when they're fact-checked, I think, again, as I keep saying, it is very, very selective. And it's fine if you want to criticize one side and run cover for the other. But please try and be honest about it. I clearly have some bias. Clearly, I have some bias against the Democrats, and I've said that. I've openly said that I actually do not have a lot of faith and trust in centre-left parties at the moment for the myriad of reasons I've given before and because of my experience of them. I don't sit there and try and cover that up, but I do try and point out when I think that things are being too biased one way or the other. What you guys try to, not all of you, what some of you guys do, is you you'll take things, and when I say, look, you might be a little bit biased on this particular thing, you just won't hear it. And Kimberly, when you keep talking about the TCGA, you keep suggesting that other people need to bring facts. The problem with that is that what you are presenting as fact are opinions given by what you are claiming to be nonpartisan groups. But economics doesn't work that way because economics is largely theoretical. So when you hear other economists that have differing opinions about this, for example, the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, who actually disagrees with what you have purported to be the scientific economic consensus, you don't want to hear it.
I didn't say
so. It's very disingenuous to just keep up this attack for Trump. Just come out and say you don't like Donald Trump, and you're going to find reasons why you don't like him. But the thing is, when you look at voting trends, when you look at the polls, when you look at what people are saying are motivating their votes, you cannot just sit there and tell the voters that they're wrong and expect that that's going to change the electoral outcomes or that's going to have people change their opinions, because that's not how human nature works. Thank you for the time. Thank you, Rick, for insisting that I get a chance.
Something, because again, he's calling me a liar and saying I misrepresented the
When
truth.
have I said that you're a liar? When have I said those words? No. Me saying that you don't have great facts is not the same as me calling you a liar.
My facts, did you? Because I sent them. I sent my facts. They are coming from bipartisan review.
But that's a bipartisan opinion. It's a bipartisan opinion, Kimberly.
Here, this is Kim's choice. No, I said if you have this kind of financial situation, then the Tax Cut Job Act was to your benefit.
Kimberly, you said a couple of days ago. Kimberly, you said a couple of days ago. This is an example of what you're.
What did you say?
This is an example of.
So go vote for it.
This is an example of what you're doing. A couple of days ago, you came onto a show and you said, well, if the TCGA is so good, why doesn't Donald Trump run on it? Why doesn't Donald Trump run and say, hey, look how fantastic it was that I hurt the middle class? Clearly, nobody's going to come out and run like that. Clearly, he doesn't share your view. Now, there are other economists that have come to different conclusions to the conclusions that were made by the economists that you're quoting. And what you're doing is you're saying, well, here are the facts. And to hear you speak, it doesn't matter if they're Republicans. Republicans aren't a monolith, just like Democrats aren't. But to hear you speak, here's what we're expected to believe. That by coincidence,
you haven't presented.
Do you want to let me finish? Did you want to let me finish?
Any of your statements.
I just quoted the CBO. To listen to you speak, you travel around Europe. You travel around the world. I've been to Europe many times, unlike Kamala Harris. I lived in Europe, okay? And I have I used to have a European passport before Brexit. Now, the opinion on Donald Trump is fairly divided across the world. And I travel all over the world. It's fairly divided. Some places a bit more strongly in his favor, some places it's not. But according to you, you go to Europe and every person you meet hates Donald Trump. You go to scientific places and you go to all of these universities and all of these different places, and every single person that you meet, every single person that goes to these conferences are completely nonpartisan and have all come to the same conclusion that Donald Trump is terrible. I don't believe that would be. I really don't believe that is a realistic thing that's happening. And I think that you are either ostracizing other people's opinions to the point that they don't share them with you, or it's confirmational bias because you're only hanging out with people who are likely to share your views. That's my personal opinion. And that is not the same as me calling you a liar. That is not the same as me calling you a liar. That is me simply saying that I think that the facts that you are presented are slanted and that you're not saying that.
But present facts to prove that, Shaq, because you haven't.
You can't present facts on something that's theoretical. Economics is theoretical.
Show me where my facts. Show me where my statement was slanted.
He just did. He just said the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, doesn't agree with whatever the TCGA is. So that's fine. Now let's totally go.
I want to jump in real quick. Just want to jump in real quick. The actual question is legitimate. It is not a biased question. The problem that we're coming into play right now is the fact that it feels biased because Trump does lie a lot, but we're forgetting other politicians like Bob Menendez, Elliot Spitzer, so on and so forth, that are even on the Democrat side that do lie. So the question isn't about Trump. The question basically is nonpartisan and it is non-biased, and it's easy to answer that it does bother you that when a politician lies, especially putting people in danger or stealing money.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with saying that. Jack, I let you talk. Let me talk. There's nothing wrong with saying that. The problem comes into play is then when we get into this whole defensive side, it's okay to say when J.D. Vance and Donald Trump pushed the notion that Haitian migrants were eating cats and dogs. It's okay to say that's wrong. It's okay to say that. It's okay to say when Kamala Harris put out different projections on what she wanted to do is wrong. It's okay. But there are levels to it. When you're stochastically terrorizing a town in Springfield, putting the children in danger, we should be able to admit that. When they're lying about the FEMA aid, and it's not hey, we need to check different sides and see whose opinion is this and that. No. When Donald Trump says FEMA wasn't there and FEMA was legitimately there, that's a lie. We can call that out because it's harming people. And again, it gets back to the notion we have to be able to be honest and open, because if we want to hold people accountable on any side, it doesn't matter Democrat or Republican, you've got to be able to honestly say, well, what they said was wrong. That's untrue. So it's an honest question.
You know what? Let me just say one. God, I got silenced the whole show yesterday. Let me just say a couple of things. Firstly, you've changed the goalposts there when you bring up Bob Menendez, because when Kimberly asked the question, she actually said, "Does it worry us about somebody running for high office?" Okay, and she's certainly not referring to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, is she? You yourself just put in the backstage messages, we've got one candidate who's lying. You guys are basing the question on the idea that only Trump and J.D. Vance are doing the lying, and then you're asking us to respond to it. And of course, people that don't like Donald Trump are going to respond to it the way that you want. Then you try to silence me. What do you think the audience thinks of that? In relation to the comment that Donald Trump made, I have on multiple occasions said that it was a bizarre thing for him to say. He shouldn't have said it like that. But just make note that he said that it wasn't him. He said that he had seen reports on TV where people in Springfield had said that. Yes, he did. Go back and watch the debate. That's exactly what he said when he was fact-checked by Miller.
He started the comment.
I went and looked it up.
You're lying.
Sure enough, there were reports coming from residents of Springfield. Now, do I believe what they're saying? No, I don't. I don't believe that that's truthful. But it is indicative of a feeling of division because of the major immigration crisis that you have in your country. And what you're doing is you're ignoring all of that.
Lastly, you are literally lying and justifying the lie.
You guys have been doing for the last 3.5 years.
You're lying and legitimately justifying the lie.
You guys run cover. You guys say it's fake news. When will you guys admit that actually it wasn't the wind that blew him down the stairs? But no, you ignore all of that because you are partisan. You are partisan, and you can call me one as well. You are legitimately
lying. Supporters don't like fact checking, and
it's
the other side is. But let's get to Sasha. All right, let me get on to something that is.
All right, go to Sasha.
Clarify something. When you have, for example, a crime, there could be somebody stole in supermarket little, I don't know, a piece of bread, for example, right? Okay, so there will be $100 fine, or maybe he would let go if it's first-time offender and so on. But there are some other crimes that could lead to people losing their lives. And they are both crimes. These crimes, or smoking marijuana is a crime, and this crime when you are shooting several people at once and so on. Same are lies. There are innocent lies. For example, Tim Walz, he stated that he was in China in September, but actually he was there in October. Whether he was in September or October cannot harm anybody. It's just what's happened to walls at that period of time, 45 or some years ago. But there are some lies, for example, with Springfield situation, which could lead people being killed and a lot of very, very hard consequences. So the lies are not the same. There are some lies which don't matter at all. Yeah, I'm not saying that you should not fact check, and you can do it, and I have no problem with that. But there are some other lies which could affect a lot of people in a very, very heavy.
I'd like to respond after Rick to that comment.
One issue is Trump is a bullshitter, undoubtedly, but we've all known bullshitters. In junior high, the 8th grade kid who after every weekend would come back and talk about all the girls he banged over the weekend. He's 13 years old. He didn't bang anybody. He's full of crap. Everybody knows it, and you just let it kind of go on. So bullshitting, to some extent, is Trump's love language. He gets up there, he says whatever he wants. The people at his rallies feel the love coming off of them. Liberals are like, well, no, he's full of crap. He doesn't really love you. But that's not the experience of his followers. So, you know, and we don't, we haven't had like a bullshitter as president before, so we don't know how to deal with it.
Well, I don't. Sorry, I thought you finished. Sorry.
No, go ahead. That's fine. That's my point.
Go ahead.
I don't think that he's just bullshitting about really important things. The thing in Springfield, there were reports that people had, and since then there've been reports that they're stealing geese and ducks and things like that from the rivers. Now, look, I don't know if it's true. I'm not there. I've got no idea. I'm not in Springfield. I've never been to Springfield, Ohio. In fact, I don't even think I've ever been to Ohio. So, you know, what do you do? But the thing is, he is tapping in to those people who you might say are very racist. I don't know, however you want to describe them, who are upset at the massive influx of migration into your country. We had a referendum here in Australia about the voice, and it was less than 70% of Australia that voted against it, right? I think it was about, on average, it was about 65% of the population. The polls in America show that over 70% of the people don't want the immigration that you've had and actually want the immigrants to be removed. Over 70%. So if you were to have a nationwide referendum, I know your system isn't designed for that, but if you were to have a nationwide referendum, they would want those people gone. If you were to have a nationwide referendum over whether people who steal less than $950 should be just let go, well more than, when they're polled, well more than 70% of the people are against that. They're against the lessening of consequences for petty crimes. And what are we saying? We're saying that politicians ignore it. Now, in any other Western nation, this kind of opinion from the public would result in political change. What you've got is you've got one party, the Democrats, that are basically saying, and their media basically saying, it's not happening. You're just racist. You're just sexist. The reason why men aren't voting for Kamala Harris is just because of misogyny. There's no acknowledgement of actually there's some deeper issues. And then you've got Donald Trump, who's caustic, who just comes out and says things and comes out with fighting words all the time, right? I don't mean fighting words as in legally speaking, but he comes out quite aggressively, and he taps into the underlying anger that so many people have. And they've told you that. They tell the media that. They tell the pollsters that. They were saying it in... Speak quiet, Jacoby. They were saying this in 2016 when they elected him the first time over Hillary Clinton, right? Because what they're saying is, we have wanted to we've been saying stuff and we feel ignored and we feel invisible to our politicians. So I think that is more what's going on than just simply stating that Donald Trump's a liar and a bullshit artist. I don't think that's an accurate thing, and I don't think that's how other people feel.
Just to point out, there were no reports.
You know what, Trevor? You have taken out most of the shows. You've taken out most of the shows and spoken over me. And I've been muted. So why are you so sensitive all the time when I want to speak?
There were no reports in Springfield.
I did not appreciate that my question was so misinterpreted. Maybe Nick can rephrase it for me on Monday. Unfortunately, we have to go. We have learned that everybody is not happy with the way they feel like they're being treated. But you know what? All in all, I don't
No
like
one said that except for me, Dan, and Adam. When you mute us and put us
Anyway,
back
we're in the wrap up. I just want to wish everyone well, be safe. If you get a chance to be able to help the victims of the hurricane, please do so. But at the end of the day, I don't trust anyone who doesn't like to be fact checked. Goodbye, everyone. Love you all.